Welcome to the past, where you'll get information related to sports, video games, technology, music, and our all-time favorite ass of the week. What is good? What's going on, y'all? This is The Past. I'm your host, BT. Episode 192 is here. I have tried my hardest to delay and prolong this episode, and I shouldn't do that to you all as listeners. We have a very, very packed show. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to get through as much of the content, if not everything, as y'all know how I do. I'm going to leave no thought unturned. That's just me being me. As I always like to do at the beginning of each show, I'd like to give you, your inspiration, your positivity, some worthwhile meaning, and that'll be as it ties in with the episode number. It's the angel number. So the angel number today is 192. If you have seen the number 192 more than what you consider enough times in the recent past, and you are now beginning to wonder what this is about, this message is for you. You need to understand that your ministering angels who guard you are trying to get you to understand certain divine truths about yourself and your life. You have to heed to their counsel if you wish to find your soul's purpose and live a fulfilled life. With angel number 192, the guardians are encouraging you to forge forward with courage. You now understand what it is they wish for you. Love and accept your destiny and desire to attain it every day. Let it be your motivation every morning when you wake up. Be determined to do better than you did the day before. The number 192 is communication from your divine angels to you. The number 1 elaborates the success you have enjoyed in the past and that which you are about to enjoy in the future. Number 1 is associated with triumphing against all odds and making it big where your dreams are concerned. It signifies a new season for you. You are going to feel more energized to take on new projects and ventures. Be courageous and remain focused on what you set out to do. Do not let sideshows distract you from your goal. Number 9 is the number of finality. It signifies the close of a certain chapter in your life. Number 9 shows the conclusion of certain occurrences in your life. You are encouraged to embrace any change that is happening in your life at the present. It might be uncomfortable, or you may have problems adjusting, but it is all worth it. Remember that growth is never comfortable. Be willing to take it all in stride. The number 2 stands for whole parts, combining forces to become one. It is the number of connections. The connections you have in your life will build you, or if not checked, deter you from achieving your dreams. Your divine protectors are advising you to make helpful contacts at this time. Angel number 192 asks you to remember to balance all your relationships and ensure that you create a harmony in your interactions. Spend your time with people who support your cause and those who encourage you to move forward. Avoid the company of the naysayers who seek to discourage every effort you make. All right, so before I go into any other topics to talk about anything else, I'm going to kind of give not really a major personal story, but just kind of a little bit of a ramble about this. And it's ironic that I'm doing the show today since this conversation literally occurred last night. A friend of mine who I won't disclose, as I always like to make sure of, I never disclose names. A friend of mine reached out to me and needed help. And it kind of tied into them second guessing or lowering their value for what they are capable of. By habit and by nature, we do this to ourselves because there's something that we know we're able to do, but we don't know how or in what way it's going to turn out. Our natural habit is we want to see the end results without really working to get to the end. And like I said, I normally would look at this as being something at the end, but this is something to kind of get you into the groove and get you into the flow early on. If you have any feedback and you think this might be something good to do at the end of the show, I don't mind changing it because I'm here. I'm here for y'all. I love doing this by far, but I'm just trying to get some input and some feedback about it. But we talked, and the conversation was steered for good reason as far as just getting her to understand no one's going to know who you are or what you're doing by keeping it to yourself. And the reason I'm giving all of that information is because, as this is saying, you want to have the right people around you that are going to build you. I have personally been learning to detox and remove anyone that feels or I sense any toxicity from. And I know that's like a very strong way of putting it, but it's been a valid way of living and a valid way of flowing through a lot of things. I'm not perfect. Like I say that to y'all hear me say this all the time. But I'm also working towards being a better person. I'm striving more towards success than perfection. And that's something that I think is important when you're looking at what you're trying to do to better you as a person, as a brand, however you want to pin it. But this message just was strong. I know it's a strong, it's another chapter, building a chapter in your life, knowing that it's a new season, turning the page. A lot of times we're scared to turn the page, and doing so kind of leaves us in the dust or leaves us behind. And the reality is we have no one really to blame or to look at for that but ourselves. And as long as you're leaving yourself in the dust, you're not really going to have a chance of growing as a human being. I always want to make sure that I'm here to give you all worthwhile content and good information. As I share each week, if you are in a crisis or you're in a tough situation, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or www.thehotline.org. I mentioned this before, and I'm going to say this now because I feel like it needs to be said before I continue. For some reason, we find ourselves choosing the wrong time to reach out for help, failing to realize that others, like sometimes a random moment of checking in is the perfect point of checking in. And if you wait until you think it may be beneficial or suitable, that therein lies where it could be too late. And we don't think about that sometimes because we're so tunnel vision on trying to make everything right and make things great. But a lot of times you never know what a person may or may not be going through, and you could be sending them a message that could get them over the hump. And I'm giving all of that information just to share it as the crisis hotline. There are other hotlines and other numbers, and I've seen people state this and post this as a whole, and I'm going to say it to be fair. It shouldn't take reading numbers or leaving statuses or posting information. A lot of times it is going to take that initiative of texting someone or calling someone or tweeting someone and just saying, hey, you good? Is everything all right? Because a lot of times you really don't know what place a person is or isn't in. So that's something to just think about from now and just in the future. As I share all the time, and make sure to get out there. If you are looking to get any foods, A Taste of Heaven RVA, 804-433-9954. She is still at the Virginia Center Commons location here in Richmond. And if you're wanting to place an order or contact her by email, it is atasteofheavenrva@gmail.com. And also Peachy Clean RVA, if you're looking to get your home cleaned or residential and or commercial cleaning. Contact person is Sherry Winston. She is a cleaning specialist. You can reach her by email at peachycleanrva. That's PEACHIE cleanrva @gmail.com. Or you can reach her by phone at 804-726-0366. All right. So I am going to be as quick and as generic as I want to say this. Normally, this conversation always comes about as to, and it's ironic that I go to the NBA tab and this comes up. It's ironic when you look at it to find out whether it was one team losing or one team winning. This is one of the few series that I could say the Warriors won. There was no the Cleveland Cavaliers lost. It was a rocky and tough road for LeBron as a player and as an athlete, because he literally was the only one to kind of do everything. And it catches up to you when you realize it, because a lot of times endurance plays a role, but then there's also personal off-court things that he's trying to take care of, because now that this has all occurred, we're in the stage and the status of where's LeBron going next. So before I give the head story, let me give the pushback story to kind of bring everybody up to speed. Golden State did, when we last ran the series, Golden State was ahead 2-0. And it got to game 3. Game 3 was the game where we were going to see what would happen. And no pun intended, we saw, and I really don't know what we saw. And this is why I say that. There's but so much that a player can or can't do that can make an impact on a team. LeBron played 40 minutes, scored 23 points. He had 7 boards and 8 assists. It's an interesting stat because I think people don't utilize this stat enough. His plus minus was -21, which is in the NBA terms, not one of the greatest numbers to have. You compare that to Kevin Durant, who game 3 was like he had a solid performance, but it wasn't like a big story performance. He scored 20 points. Their main guy who showed out in game 3, believe it or not, was Steph Curry. Steph actually went 7 for 15 from the 3, 12 for 27 from the field, perfect at the line. He had an all-around game in game 3. So you look at game 3 and you think, I mean, obviously, as it was evident, that was the turning point. That was kind of the switch that Golden State had in their back pocket. Fast forward to game 4. As we all know, game 4 was the infamous win or go home. And I need to look at this because I want to make sure I got this right. I'm having my, I see what it is. I have my games off because the game that I want to see is not the one that came up. So rewind. Everything and all the stats and information I gave you just now was from game 4. Game 3 was the game that really kind of turned and switched the series. Explicit content warning. Take it for what it is. Kevin Durant went apeshit that game. Kevin Durant showed why he's one of the best players on the planet. I think he wanted to kind of get that name and get that understanding to people's minds of, yes, LeBron is a beast. LeBron can ball. I'm taking nothing away from LeBron as a player, but I do this. And I talked with someone about this at a get-together on Saturday, and it's a valid point if you really look at it. Kevin Durant is 7 feet tall. The body and size of a shooting guard and the speed of a guard, like a typical everyday guard. Durant, it didn't matter who you put against him. You had to put as much of a hand in his face as possible, and it didn't make a difference because literally it was a turn and shoot type of game, along with the fact that he was able to kind of go to the basket at will. So switching gears and talking about game 3, because this is the actual game 3. Game 3, LeBron had 33 points. LeBron had a triple-double. Even with 33 points, Durant had 43. And Steph kind of had one of his off shooting nights. He was 1 for 10 from three. So it was kind of shown and exposed that, okay, this is the tough point. Golden State gonna wrap this up. Game 4 was on Friday. Friday, I was uncertain as to what would happen because I wasn't sure if it was going to be, all right, let's prepare to talk about Game 5, or, hey, the series is over, let's get the brooms. My sports group that I managed, I already had posted a picture of a broom anyway, so it didn't make a difference one way or the other. And I kind of went into social detox around that point anyhow. But to make a simple story simpler, it was LeBron. It was LeBron and the Cavs. It's basically how the easiest way to describe Game 4. If you really look at the box score and you really break it down, LeBron had 23, Love had 13, JR had 10. Rodney Hood finally showed up and had 10, but 10 points coming off the bench is not showing up. That was, you played a 6-man role. There were a lot of, as I call them, the John Does kind of got in and got their time. Jordan Clarkson was a no-show. It was, the team's setup shows a lot of exposures to what's coming next year. I'm going to be the bad guy, and I'm going to forecast this early, but it's just what I'm seeing. And this has already been talked about. LeBron's not going to stay in Cleveland. If anyone thinks otherwise, he's not staying in Cleveland. Rumors have swirled that LeBron's son is going to Sierra Canyon. If you do or don't know about Sierra Canyon basketball team, they had Marvin Bagley on their team a few years ago. Last year he would have been a senior. This past high school year he would have been a senior, but instead he was able to declare to go to college a year early. So he was in, that's how he got bumped up a year in the draft. Moving forward, they then had Kenyon Martin's son, Scottie Pippen's son, and I can't think of the other guy. They played ball, and they had other guys on the team who all were very key role players to their run towards the state championship in high school. So to add LeBron there, LeBron Jr., Gary Payton kind of leaked this story. It kind of swings or sways towards the idea that LeBron could possibly go to LA. Whether we see that or how that all kind of pans out, we have to kind of wait and see what decision and what his occurrence is going to come down to. All I'm asking for, and all I'm being the nice guy about, is please do not give us the infamous or the dreaded the decision part 3, because we really don't need it. Like, we don't. I'm saying it as nice and as simple as I can. So that's where we are with the NBA. NHL, on the other hand, they went through their Stanley Cup playoffs, and we have a new winner. Obviously, both teams, it was an interesting scenario because you had Las Vegas, first year expansion team, makes it to the World Cup. Makes it to the Stanley Cup. And you had the Capitals, 1 seed, haven't been to the Stanley Cup in a long time. Has never won a championship, and the Capitals kind of proved experience was key to the series. Game 4 was a decent. So, if you look back at the series, Vegas won Game 1, and after that, it was all Washington. Washington won Game 2 in Las Vegas, so that gave them home ice. I was ready to say home field and mess it up again, but that gave them home ice. Games 3 and 4 were in Washington, and Game 3 they won 3-1. Game 4 was a scoring nightmare for hockey, 6-2. In Game 5, it was a very close game. It was 2-2 at one point, like stuck on 2-2. And if I'm not mistaken, Vegas scored first. They were up 3-2. Then after that, you had Washington score 2 straight. And that was after that point. Once it gets down to your team running an empty net, you're trying to get everybody up on the front line to score. And they couldn't get a score in those last couple of minutes. And the Capitals were able to win the Stanley Cup in Vegas. And this is ironic with the NBA series as well, because you had the Warriors, who were determined they were going to win this series in Cleveland. They didn't want to bring it back to Golden State, which they did. So the Capitals won. Their celebrations and everything started today. And it was just a big deal. So shout outs to the Caps for winning, and also for the Warriors for now, whether people want to acknowledge it as such, beginning their dynasty, winning 3 out of the last 4. This is I'm going to save this story because I don't want to jump this one too early yet. There was sticking to the NBA, the story came about as to what LeBron. So I'll give this as a very condensed backstory, and we may hit this story again, but I'm gonna kind of give you the assessment of where we are with this. The Eagles were the Super Bowl champions. The Eagles have the request and option of going to the White House. By default, a team should be able to go, plain and simple. But in this occurrence, or in this instance, the president thought it was in his best interest to not allow the Eagles to come to the White House for that celebration. The Eagles weren't invited due to the rule that was implemented in the NFL as far as players not kneeling during the anthem or having the option of staying in the back during the anthem where they're not on the field. If you're not and it's interesting because it's an odd rule as far as if you're not on the field, you won't be fined for it. But if you do come to the field, you can't kneel. And then that draws a fine, or I believe a penalty or something of that sort. So this then caused the NBA to be vocal, which generated both the Cavs and the Warriors, regardless who won the series, confirming, well, we're not planning on going to the White House if we're the winners. So after they made that decision, Trump then decided to come behind and say, well, they're not invited to be at the White House. You can't uninvite someone who already decided not to come anyway. Like, that's just, if I've already made the decision, I'm not coming to your event, making a verbal or public announcement to tell me that I'm not able to come, it's not really a benefit one way or the other. And it's sad that we've gotten to this point. But what I find ironic is this didn't happen when Clinton was in office. And this is a political spin, but it's a way of how you have to look at it. This is still kind of tying into the sports trend. We didn't run into this with Clinton. We didn't run into this with Bush, George W., if I'm getting it right. We started to see this with Obama when the Patriots, because I think the Patriots won one year when he was in office and they didn't go because Brady was not a supporter of Obama. Which, again, your political views can be put aside for a more important tradition. This is something that's been a tradition that's in place for years, and I get it. Traditions and trends are meant to be broken and adjusted. But the rate and the point that we are at, the reasons of people not going doesn't add up. But that's all another whole different scenario. So, like I said, both Steph Curry and LeBron kind of made it clear that whoever the NBA champ was this year would not be coming to the White House from that series. So obviously with Golden State winning, they're not going to the White House. And they went through this last year. If you really look at it, they decided not to go, which then caused Trump to say, well, you're not invited to come to the White House. And they were like, okay, we weren't coming anyway, but we thank you for that and we greatly appreciate it. So that choice was made and that decision was presented, moving things as it was. And I have an article here. I'm not gonna really go into it too much because it's presented there as far as what the Trump's quote unquote snubbing of the Eagles coming to the White House, like what it means and what it was all about and where that stands. This is a bit of a tech story, I guess you can call it, but the World Cup, we are a couple of days, actually we're 2 days away from the World Cup. And whether people think about these things, the players pick up on this even more. And that is the equipment used for the World Cup, which obviously the main equipment you would think of is the ball. So they utilize a specific ball. They made a special ball this year for the World Cup. It has a NFC chip in it, which if any of you know, that is kind of like a way of guiding and tracking the ball itself. So what they did was they send the ball through different tests to make sure it's cleared and there aren't any issues once it comes to start of the World Cup. Because once the World Cup starts, they can't make any moderations or alterations to the ball itself. I looked at a video on YouTube that kind of explained how a lot of the players who were using the new soccer ball weren't the biggest fan of it. If you look at the design of it, it's kind of going in the nostalgia meets modern day technology type concept, because it gives the ball a somewhat digital look. And someone kind of presented it, if you really look at it, it kind of has like that Minecraft feel to it. So if any of my gamers who are listening, if you look at the new soccer ball, you'll look at it and the first thing you'll think of is Minecraft. But the new ball, which is titled or donned as the Telstar 18, has been passed or has been succeeded and allowed for wind tunnel tests. Soccer fans around the world are gearing up for 2018 World Cup, which is set to kick off in Russia this Thursday. New storylines abound from whether Egypt's rising star Mohamed Salah can return from injury to Iceland's first appearance, but some old storylines remain, such as criticism of tournament's new official ball. Some players have already complained about the ball, dubbed the Telstar 18, which debuted in international play last November. It's really strange, Spanish goalkeeper David De Gea told the Spanish website AS this spring. Goalkeepers are going to have a lot of problems with this ball. The complaints evoke the controversy that swirled around the Jabulani, the much maligned ball used in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. That ball was widely panned for its unpredictable and unstable path through the air. Adidas 2014 follow-up, the Bazooka, generally received positive reviews and little criticism. Despite the initial complaints, a new study shows this year's Telstar 18 should fare just well. You can read the rest of the story to kind of go into a more in-depth detail regarding that. The most condensed and simple way I can explain it to you all is like this. It's little factors that everyday people may or may not think of, but people who really are soccer heads can kind of look at a ball and kind of tell the idea of the difference. The example that I will go with, taking it away from soccer, is basketball. The NBA brought in a basketball that they tried to use that they thought would work. It's the worst idea ever because the ball had lines and grips. It wasn't the best grippable basketball, and it would cause a lot of players, I think they said, had issues with their hands and things of that nature. And it even got to the point where they ended up mid-season changing the ball. This case, it's a little different because whatever option or whatever style they go with, that's it. There's not really an alternate of, we'll use this ball, and then if there's a problem, we can kind of change it mid-season. So we will, in a couple days, the Olympics will be going on, so you will get a firsthand test or taste of the ball itself in action, and we'll look forward to seeing what's in store with that. We're gonna go into our stuff, and I will tell you now, I'm in my headspace a little bit about this, but for good reason. This week is E3, which is the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and it's held every year. I'm not sure how many years back this goes, but it is a big deal. It is something that people should be pretty prepared for coming down the line with technology. So mainly your main companies in the gaming world, Sony, Microsoft, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Nintendo, EA. Those are the first ones I can think of offhand. PC gaming. There are a couple indie groups who showed up as well. Devolver did a good presentation. I won't give too much now because I want to talk about it yet until next week. I want to get all the information because I feel like that's going to take up a good amount of time to talk about everything that's going on with that. So we're going to jump into our stuff. As I said, the first stuff that I have is actually an unveiling, and it's ironic and timing is key for this since the season has ended, since the finals have kind of came and went in a sense. The new cover athlete for the special edition has been unveiled, and that is none other than LeBron James. And there's quite a bit of excitement behind it because on the cover itself, it's his picture, and math is a great tool. I'll say that first, because this is supposed to be the 20th anniversary edition, but technically the game hasn't been out 20 years yet. So whoever in 2K is doing math might want to reevaluate this one. And I could be wrong because I'm trying to put it in my head, because I want to say the first 2K actually came out in 99 when the Dreamcast came out. We're not going to I'll let them be great on this one, but they were a little early. But on the cover, it gives all of the nicknames that they have for LeBron, or just accolades. 330, assuming that's the area code for Akron. Chosen One, GOAT, James Gang, Bronny, Bryson's Jury. Those are his kids. 2 and 5, I'm assuming this must be his finals record. I don't know. They will know your name. They will know your name is kind of the main trend of NBA 2K19. For the second year running, a Cleveland Cavalier will be on the front of the biggest basketball game on the planet. But this time you can't actually see if LeBron is wearing a Cavs jersey. With James impeding free agency set to be the biggest talking point of the offseason, and with a very real chance that he'll sign for a team that isn't Cleveland, 2K got ahead of his potential scenario by showing his face, not his jersey. That's a lesson learned from last year. when the Cavs superstar Kyrie, when then Cavs superstar Kyrie Irving was traded to the Celtics, rendering the game's covered outdated before it even hit shelves. The trailer obviously features no gameplay, so there's not much to report. But this small blurb from the game's various stores pages, but isn't promising. 2K celebrates 20 years of redefining what sports gaming can be, from best-in-class graphics and gameplay to groundbreaking game modes and an immersive open-world neighborhood. NBA 2K19 continues to push limits as it brings gaming one step closer to real-life basketball excitement and culture. So I will say this, and this is probably why they can do the 20th anniversary. If we're basing it on when Visual Concepts first got started, you might be onto something. Or when Visual Concepts came together with the NBA 2K idea, you're onto something. But it's, the numeric part of it, you don't want to put you don't want to put anything too far ahead of the horse in this case. So they have, the main point of it is they've unveiled the cover for NBA 2K19. I like it. It's, you have LeBron. You can't go wrong with LeBron. You've had Durant was a cover athlete when he was in OKC. It wouldn't be surprised if Steph Curry gets a nod. Steph Curry could get a mention on a request for it as well. They've had quite a few guys that are in that talk of could be the cover athlete for the game. This story is probably my favorite story out of all of the stories I have. Well, before I do that, because my stories are all over the place today, I want to make sure I mention this before I forget. Last week, I did mention already that E3 has occurred, which is great. Or E3 is currently in action. I was initially going to kind of pull a cheat code and have a screen set up to show E3 while I'm working on the podcast, but things happen, life moves. You can't win them all. Plus, I didn't bring anything fidgety, so I was struggling because I went and got something to be fidgety and still didn't bring it in with me, so it was pointless. I know that's like random minutia for you all, but just to share how the day has been going. But there was the WWDC event for Apple. So anyone who may or may not be aware, what Apple likes to do is bring to light what they have coming in the upcoming year for their devices. And it's not just the iPhone or the Mac. It's development based. It could be iOS based. It's varying things that you'll get to look forward to, even down to the watch. So there were 7 big announcements that were made, and I'm going to try to simply give what occurred from each one and go from there. So there was the ARKit 2.0, which they get an update from the 1.0. And if you're not sure what the ARKit refers to, it's mainly where you can place your mobile device, whether it's your iPhone or iPad, place it at a table, and it can generate items to be part of what the image is showing. If anyone's surprised or may not really be realizing this is something you might not have used, go to Snapchat. There is a filter that's there that will allow you to add little people to look like yourself. And if you add someone else, you can kind of have it play out to look like you're interacting with each other within that moment or whatever. But that's what ARKit does. Like, I could take a pen and put it on the table and kind of give that pen life and give it a more creative look through the with the AR with the that update. They brought up something called smartphone addiction, where what it does is it will break down how often you pick up your phone, the amount of notifications received, the time you spend using various apps, and it'll kind of limit you on the length of time for those apps being used. So it's kind of almost like a personal time manager for your phone, which I think is great. I have been known to a lot of times pick up my phone, and from like now, it's a group that I'm with, and an idea was brought up that I have been working on personally, which is from 9 a.m. at night to 9 a.m. in the morning, I don't check emails. And it's, whether people think that's not a big deal, it can be hard, because if you're naturally used to waking up, picking up your phone and just checking different things, you're like, oh, well, let me check my email. And you're like, wait, I don't need to check it right now. So having a feature that will actually stop your device from not allowing you to view emails in a certain time period, I think that's a great idea. You can make animojis of your own. They are calling it the Memoji, or Memoji, excuse me. It's still with iPhone X. They have not confirmed whether this is going to be coming to the lower iOSs yet. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like it'll be on the next phone that comes out. If it doesn't come with animojis, it would be stupid. Let alone if the iOS 12 update is able to give that ability, that would be an even bigger bonus. Apple Watch is getting a pretty healthy update for the WatchOS 5, where they're implementing a walkie-talkie mode. They'll be able to receive reminders to begin or stop a workout. Like, you no longer have to like get into the specific workout part and then set up your workout. You can just start working out and it'll realize, oh, you're working out. Is that what you're doing? You can confirm it by saying yes, and it'll go through the workout stage for you. There will be a couple of iOS apps that are, iPhone and iPad friendly that'll be working on the Mac. They are implementing dark mode for Mac. Group calls. I'm gonna be excited as I can about this, because I don't really do a lot of phone talk anyway. So doing FaceTime with 32 people is not that serious to me personally. Now, it can be on the flip side if you have a conference call, and instead of you just doing a verbal conference call and you actually want to see who you're talking to. I think in that regard, it's a perfect. I'm with that. I have no problem with that at all. But yeah, those are the 7 features to look forward to that came from WWDC. To kind of dabble into the tech world and gaming world, because like I said, we haven't really hit a lot of gaming topics in a while. I believe I've already mentioned that I did play Street Fighter 30th anniversary. Love it. Still trying to learn and get a feel for the controls. If I've already stated this, we're just going to continue. But Dragon Ball Fighter Z there was a tournament in Austin, Texas called DreamHack. I'll give a real quick overview. DreamHack is primarily known to do its event for. They usually do Winter DreamHack, and they do DreamHack Austin, where it's primarily based on Counter-Strike Go. Cool, great, no problem. But this event is also used to have other tournaments such as Dragon Ball Fighter Z, Tekken, Street Fighter, Smash. Those events will get implemented into that weekend as well. One of the events that was there was Dragon Ball Fighter Z. And a kid named Greg was seen using not your everyday controller, not your everyday arcade stick. So I finally have been able to distinguish the two. Arcade sticks are what you would consider joystick. It's a fighting joystick is the nicest way to put it. Your controller is the default controller you get with a system. He used neither of those for this match. He actually used a piano. from Rock Band. And it got him to top 8 on loser side. And it was termed and donned as the Ivory Keys of Destruction. They were initially showing him just playing, which was no big deal. But then there would be a point where they would show him playing on full screen, like showing his character fighting against the other character, his opponent. But you would see his hands as he was doing his moves, piano wise. Let's see. It was the perfect twist ending. I couldn't believe it. This guy is playing Dragon Ball Fighter Z, an admittedly more accessible but still anime as hell fighting game using piano keys. And then I looked at the top of the screen, losers top 12. He's not only good at the game and not at playing the piano, but he's making it into the top 8 of a fairly robust tournament. The camera guys cut to the piano controller frequently to give the spectators at home the picture-in-picture hands view, which also made me realize Greg is a southpaw, or at least he moves his character with his right hand and inputs his attacks with his left, the opposite layout you would have with a DualShock 4 or an out-of-the-box fight stick. So I'll elaborate on this because I know a lot of you are like, okay, what do you mean? What are you explaining? This is where having cameras help. But that basically means if you use a regular controller, your directional pad on most controllers is left on the left side, and on the right side are your buttons to do moves such as your ABXY, triangle, square, X, circle on PlayStation. Typically it's been ABXY. I think or Ouya if you really want to be petty, but all of those are on the right side. With an arcade stick, your arcade movement is with the left side. All of your buttons to do all your moves are on the right side. If you go to any arcade machine in America, possibly in Japan, it's set up the exact same way. X-Men, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, come for me. I'll prove NBA Jam. All of them are set up the exact same way. But he has actually been playing this way for a while. And he was able to show videos of himself playing like this. So they are showing an event. I'm assuming, let's see. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm black. I've phased because I'm not sure. I guess this is probably a local event, and both players have like the Hori controller in front of the Hori arcade stick in front of them. Neither one of them are using the arcade stick. Player on the left is using the regular default controller. Player on the right, who is Mr. Gary, is playing with the piano from Rock Band 3. I just want you to remember that part. But props to him for putting in work. I mean, he made it. He did pretty good. But he ended up not winning the tournament. The piano virtuoso fell to Chris G in losers quarters 2-0 and placed 5th or 6th overall. So shout outs to him definitely for making it that far. We are almost at the end, and I'm surprised a little bit only because I didn't realize how many stories broke this week. And one story, okay, good. I wanted to make sure all right. So I have a weird moment. I have an ass of the week, and I have a what were they thinking? But before I do any of those, before I present any of those, as promised, we're gonna go into what I've introduced or what we implemented as the music sesh. And the music sesh, I will tell you now, I found some pretty good albums this week. Uh, the first album that because a lot of my friends a lot of my friends are learning with me. When I have music, it doesn't just stay with me and that's it. It's usually not even me texting them to say, "Hey, what's up?" It's usually I'm just sending you here's a playlist, here's some music, jam out at your own time. My roommate actually was impressed by Black Panther's soundtrack, which I was, even with me not being the biggest movie person, listening to the soundtrack, it's the perfect workout album. So if you are a person who goes to the gym, check that album out. You'll thank me later. But the playlist flow for me this week or this past weekend has been Georgia Smith. She had a new album called Lost and Found. Love it. If you want a really chill R&B or soul album, check out Lost and Found. To continue the Kanye epsilon of chaos. One, I didn't know Kanye's birthday was last Friday, which was the same day Kid Cudi brought his album out, and it was a week after Kanye's album came out. So that was very marketable, cordial ploy, as I would call it. But I did listen to Kid Cudi's album, Kids See Ghosts. I'm going to say the same thing I said before on the other two individuals. This is not an album. It's an EP. It's 7 tracks. You're looking at about a 24-minute listen. It's very quick. But the 7 tracks that you listen to are pretty good. I will be that person to say, because people don't want to hear it, Kanye's headspace with him personally and everything that's going on, I can't justify or clarify, and I'm not going to. But producer-wise and musically, he does what he does. It's weird because you hear it in Kid Cudi's album. You kind of can hear it in Pusha T's album. You don't hear it very much in his album. And I still say this, and I've heard this before on other podcasts. His effort to music is not the same. And you can note it's a much more noticeable thing now. I'll just kind of put it that way. You take it for what it is. Continuing with the other listening music sessions that I did have, I did listen to all of the album, but I did hear Wi-Fi's Funeral. It's pretty different, but I enjoyed that. How could I forget? I'm slipping. Neo's album, Good Man. First of all, listen to the deluxe version. I'm gonna say this how I can say it. We're in a digital era, so a lot of people still physically buy albums. If you buy albums, I commend you. I would be right there with you, or getting my music how I get my music. But if you have not, or if you have streaming service, I don't care if it's Tidal, I don't care if it's Spotify, I don't care if it's Apple Music, listen to Good Man. You will thank me later. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I'm giving hype to this one, but Georgia Smith the same way. Those 2 albums for me alone are albums I could go back and listen to. I found an artist, Tierra Whack. Her album is called Whack World. I'm not sure if it's a new album, but I was able to see get a brief visual of her album. And I got schooled on this a while back because I kept asking my roommate, did she hear Janelle Monáe? And she was like, I caught the visual album. I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay. So I got called on my BS, and I've learned. I did briefly catch her album visually, but I listened to it, and she has a pretty good album. I haven't gone fully through his album yet, but Serpent with Feet. First few tracks I listened to, you might be surprised. I will leave it at that. But yeah, that is for the most part, that's been my music sesh this week, or this weekend. Like I really have been kind of idly but calmly chill on like listening this weekend. And it's not that I wasn't in my music zone. It's just life happens the way it does. I'm sitting here now as I'm talking to you all, like sharing music because I want to make sure like I don't leave the thoughts behind on my stance and my headspace about some music that I've been listening to. So, I'm gonna leave a challenge with you all as listeners today for Music Sesh. If you find good music, share it with someone. Don't hold it. Just share it however you choose to share it. It could be a text, it could be an email, it could be a tweet, doesn't matter. If you want to tweet it to all your friends, share it because you never know what music could help someone get through their day or their life. Now to the asks of the week. And these are asses of the week. And I'm going to be elaborate and as cordially detailed in each of them because each of these cornballs have confirmed why they were deserving of being ass of the week. So we already talked about Trump earlier. And that's I had to figure out because each week when I'm sitting here, I normally say, okay, here's the episode, and let me figure out how I'm gonna throw these titles in, but I don't want to give every single piece of information. So that's why it was as simple to just say champions, covered all the champions. Pianos, you're gonna remember pianos. New music as we've gone over, and obviously for the last one, Trump being Trump. We've already gone into Trump as far as his denial of invite for the Philadelphia Eagles, which you're uninviting someone who didn't choose to go. We're not going to go back down that road again. But now, I guess he wants to be the administrator of Twitter now. He is not, he wants to have more control over Twitter because Twitter has become his playground. Hear me out. Y'all, I know y'all gonna probably be like, "What? What are you talking about? His playground?" I'm gonna read what this says, and then we'll just kind of have a free fall. If there's one thing President Donald Trump has made clear during his time in office so far, it's that he's a big fan of Twitter, and that includes, as recent legal battles demonstrate, blocking users that disagree with his views. And even though last month a federal judge ruled that doing this constituted a violation of the First Amendment, it seems it's a pretty important feature for Trump, as the U.S. Justice Department now says it will appeal that ruling. The issue stems from a lawsuit filed last year by 7 individual Twitter users who have been blocked by the president or his team. The plaintiffs claim that being excluded from Trump's public online discourse was unconstitutional, while the White House argued that it's a personal account, so First Amendment rights are moot. U.S. District Judge Naomi Buchwald ruled that comments on the president's account constitute public forums and therefore blocking users for conflicting views violated their right to free speech. She also suggested that the president simply mute accounts he doesn't want to interact with, but as this latest turn of events suggests, that's not good enough for Trump. The 7 users that sued have now been unblocked by his account, but their lawyer said they are disappointed that the government intends to appeal the district court's thoughtful and well-supported ruling. Dude, okay. As a user of Twitter, and this is Tech Talk General, so if you all don't want to hear it, forward a couple minutes and prepare for the next ass of the week. Twitter's option for people who use Twitter to its potential is they can block or delete or unfollow who they choose to not get information from. Requesting to have someone violated or suspended is not fixing anything. A friend of mine who I follow through podcasting, he's even gone through it with another big name individual we just talked about through music. I'm not gonna say names, but he blocked him on Twitter because of mentioning because of the podcaster mentioning the musician and the musician feeling a certain way about it. You have to understand with media, if you're not open to criticism, you're in the wrong line of work. Criticism, and I will present it like this and move forward because I don't want to sit on this topic too long. Customer service goes across the board. There's not a limit or a boundary as to where or how far customer service goes. And I think people have missed that mark over the last couple of years. In any type of work that you do that involves people, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in person, whether it's through wherever or however you deal with people, it's customer service. And customer service even goes into dealing with other people you work with, because you have to be respectful to each other. It's equivalent to being in a room and playing music that's extremely loud that no one else needs to hear. That's not good customer service, only because, number one, the other people that are trying to listen to what they're listening to may not want to hear what you're listening to, number one. Number two, and most importantly, you have to be understanding of the environment, because if someone who anonymously comes by and hears it is offended, you can't justify or clarify, well, I mean, I'm just playing my music. Y'all shouldn't have a problem with that. But I do. So it has to be considered and taken into account. Segueing that and just kind of giving that the attention is just to say it as people have their right and their choice to speak on what they feel. If you as the president don't like that, you might need to hang it up. I don't know what to tell you. Like this might not be your rodeo. You might need to do something else. And that's completely okay. But you gotta acknowledge this now before it gets too late. Our next ask of the week, we're chipping slightly past the 1 hour point, is, first of all, before I even mention this, whoever did this campaign of kickstarting this or GoFunding it or whatever, you're the ass of the week just for this alone. But Shaquille O'Neal, who I love his podcast. I love your podcast. I've just returned to subscribing again and listening because I needed to get some excitement, and Borderline is hilarious. But this game show, not this game show, this video game is the true epitome and the vaguest definition of the simplest definition of trash. Shaq Fu was a game that came out years ago on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. We accepted that. We let it ride out. It wasn't the greatest game, but it was there. And the game A Legend Reborn was born, and it actually was released a week ago today on June the 5th. What makes this even more interesting is I actually saw this game being played out. I don't know what the designers were doing or what was going on. Never again. That is all I'm going to say. There were a lot of reviews for this game. And I'm looking at a couple of them. I guess people are just kind of having their bias or their love of Shaq. I don't know. But one has, this is a bad game. It's not worth $20. In my opinion, not worth $5 unless you're the kind of person that would get a kick out of Paris Hilton's slut jokes in 2018 and can't get enough lazy, casual racism. Valid assessment. Let's see. Over the years, I've been to many conventions as a writer. I spend about half my time taking photos, and the rest getting drunk and talking about video games. Usually the conversation goes to that dark place. What's the worst game ever? I always say Bubsy, but I have a long-standing and very vocal hatred for that person. I'm not going to use that term. Back in the day, this question usually boiled down to some solid choices. However, I usually got told Shaq Fu. That being said, imagine my surprise when I found out there was a crowd-funded reimagining. Seems like an appropriate word. Shaq Fu: A Legend Reborn is definitely a game. It's on the PlayStation Store and it loads up. Playing it, on the other hand, is slightly more like forgetting that River City Ransom Underground, Scott Pilgrim, Castle Crashers, and of the other much more polished and functional beat 'em ups that have come out in these last years. That out of the way, let's delve into the Big D's problems, freshman effort, shall we? And then they kind of give a long breakdown. I'm not going to read all of that, but to get an idea, it's a side scroller fighting game, and you're taking Shaquille O'Neal, giving him these buffs through certain parts of the game, and just trying to beat enemies. It's kind of like your X-Men or your Double Dragon, Streets of Rage, that type of format where you have to beat all the enemies in this specific section before you can advance to the next section. The bosses aren't the hardest. There were a few times the streamer who I did watch play, he would have a little bit of a problem, but it wasn't like an extreme problem that it took over his gameplay. There's a point when Shaq is actually talking to the developer or the narrator or the person who made the game and getting input regarding the game, because there's like music in the game. He requests to have certain songs played. I couldn't take it for real. And I think what makes me not take it for real even more was the simple fact that this was a $20 game. I couldn't do it. I'll take the 20, add another 10. I think it was 10. Yeah, whatever amount I paid for Street Fighter. I would buy another copy of Street Fighter before I would buy another copy of Street Fighter, give it away before I buy Shaq Fu: A Legend Reborn. But yeah, the crowdfunding, whoever did it, ought to be ashamed of themselves. And last but not least, this story still blows my mind that it actually happened. I don't have his name in this story, which sucks. So I'm going to give a backstory on my end, and it will kind of tie into this story. So one day I was getting off work, and I'm getting off work. One day my roommate was getting off work. I go to pick her up, and I'm leaving from work from her job, and I look behind me and I'm seeing flashing lights, paying no attention to it, no big deal. And I was like, yo, what happened? Did you do something? Did I miss something? She was like, nah, I don't know what's going on. And we laugh it off. We didn't really think much of it at the time. No big deal. Fast forward to getting home, and the story comes out, and it's happening here in my hometown. I'm going to make sure I have both articles so you can get kind of a good story as to what happened. Because they initially didn't identify the driver, but they do have his information. I want to make sure I get his name because I don't want to leave anything out. Give me 1 second. I usually am like on my game. All right. So we got the full story. A 29-year-old man faces multiple charges after, I'm going to try to get as much of this right. I'm not going to read this too intensely. Charges that the police say he stole an armored personal carrier, or an APC, from Fort Pickett and traveled through downtown Richmond on June 5th. Joshua Philip Yabut of Richmond and a member of the Virginia National Guard has been charged with driving under the influence of drugs, felony eluding, and a felony count of unauthorized use of a vehicle in Richmond. On Fridays, authorities in Nottoway County said Yabut will be charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Terry Royal, the Nottoway County Commonwealth Attorney, said she will seek an indictment against Yabut and the next grand jury meeting on July 3rd. She said the Richmond unauthorized use of a vehicle charge will be dropped when that happens. He is being held at the Richmond City Jail. He was arraigned on Wednesday and will be back in court on July the 11th. Yabut, a first lieutenant assigned as the commander of the Petersburg-based headquarters company 276 Engineer Battalion, is accused of taking the APC from Fort Pickett, driving it up I-95 through the city of Richmond, driving down the boulevard in Scotts-Addison along Broad Street in the Fan before surrendering at East Broad and 11th Streets at 9:40 p.m. In an interview with the Associated Press, Yabut said he was authorized to take the vehicle, stopping right there. This is why he's asked of the week. Why would someone authorize you to take a vehicle? And not just any vehicle, a tank, and drive around to see what would happen? And it's even worse because of the fact that he was under the influence. And what really is the kicker of this, not just that it's a felony, but we are federal. You're hitting federal stage with this point. You're not this isn't like minor slight work. This is, dude, you really didn't think this through. According to the report, Yabut called the charges against him bogus and said his commanding officer told him to drive the armored vehicle on a pre-planned route to gauge police response. However, on Thursday, the Virginia National Guard said Lieutenant Yabut was not authorized by the brigade commander or anyone else to drive the armored personnel carrier off Fort Pickett to any location for any reason. There was no exercise to gauge police response. So someone brought this up. I'm going to go into this and we're going to close this show because this is very important to bring up. And I never paid this any attention in the many years of watching and hearing stories like this be presented on TV. Incidents occur, and this is, before I go any further, this is not a profile. This is not a bias. This is just general conversation. Incidents occur all the time in cities, states, worldwide. The media knows how to hide who does what crimes. When they apprehend different individuals, and I'm not putting any examples to this, I'm just giving this as a general thought. When they apprehend some individuals or situations, the media will automatically come out, even if they haven't gotten the suspect. They'll say an African American male or a black male or an Indian female or an Indian male or Hispanic. They will give the background or the race of any race except white. And I don't understand that. When this story broke, it literally said the suspect. Let me make sure I got this correct because I don't want to give information and not make it sound backwards. A man was busted after taking a massive armored military vehicle for a joyride and leading dozens of police on a bizarre chase through Virginia highways. No one picked up on that, but it happened. I don't want this to come off. And I'm, like I said, I know I'm like going into a different bag and a different presentation saying this, but I'm just talking to y'all general. We gotta stop profiling people, or we gotta stop bucketing people or individuals. People are people. If somebody did something, just say they did it. You can say a man, you can say a woman, you can say a person. But I've noticed that in media, and I never paid it any attention until this incident happened, that is normally the presentation of it being the black male, the white female, the black female, this Asian woman or Asian man, a man. Anytime that's said, next time if you see that in the media, mark your words. Was likely a white person. And I'm to reiterate, I'm not here to play it as a black versus white thing. I'm not here to play it as any race against any other race. I'm just stating to you general information and just going off of sheer observation and just something to think about. But that all aside, what person on any military whatever is gonna say, run this tank real quick downtown, go to Richmond, just drive downtown and see if you cause any attention and get back to me. Whoever that person was that told him that in his mind, they get ass of the week too. But I'm gonna end on that note, and I'm just gonna give y'all some personal input from me as a whole. This isn't even on a profile level; it's just general verbiage that I want to share. Value those who are here now. We always hear the phrase, "It's better to give people roses it's better to give people flowers while they're alive." But I really want to say, value those who are near to you now. We've lost a lot of people, and there have been a lot of people who have died due to mental health or mental illness. And we think about everything in all the ways that they impacted someone while they were here. But we also don't realize whether that person did or didn't have the right resources to reach out to someone or to get help while everything seemed fine. And just taking that moment or two, whether it's a phone call, a text, anything, it makes a big difference. So do it while they're here. Don't play the what if or I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, y'all, I haven't talked to anybody about this now, but I'll share this and then I'll close. Because I know I was going to close, but I haven't yet. I had to take a social detox or social media break because a lot of things that were being shared or being read were beginning to take a toll on me. And I know everyone else's issues shouldn't be mine. But a lot of times you read a lot of statuses, you read a lot of messages, and sometimes messages don't tell everything, or sometimes messages give way more information than some people want to know. And in most cases, I usually find myself better to just kind of back off and let them go through whatever it is they're going through. But the reality is, if you're in need of, or if you're trying to get help, ask, seek, find. Don't hide and hold it to yourself and think everybody knows that you're good, because they don't. No one's really going to know if you're good or if you're not good if it's not presented. But don't present it on social media. Sometimes social media, you can read between the lines of people and know that they need help. So that's what I'm going to leave y'all with tonight, today, this afternoon, this evening. Continue to follow the podcast. We upload each week. Episodes do go to Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast. These are on iTunes. They are on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I'm getting that more exposure. Pastpodcast.com. Intros and outros, music, thanks to Grimecraft. Props to you, bro. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. Microphone that you're hearing me on, I'm chill today, as y'all can tell, but it is thanks to the Blue Yeti microphone. So with that being said, I'm your host, BT. Episode 192 closing out, and this is the past. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get any information specifically based on the shows, you can go to Spreaker.com/BriTapePodcast or go to www.passpodcast.com. On both of those options, you do have the information related to what topics were talked about, the timestamps for the episode, as well as the specific links related to that specific story. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, The Past signing out.
でもそんなんじゃダメもうそん